Hi, so today I'm going to discuss a recent crackdown on the CBI scheme. So CBI is Citizenship by Investment, where you have an option to purchase these passports by cash. A lot of countries offer this, and there has been a lot of scrutiny on the options or the loopholes that these type of schemes create. The US government, as of today, they have terminated a very important feature of these schemes. So I'm going to discuss what is the impact, what is the change, the ruling on this one, how does this impact people. And the second part, I'm also going to discuss my own assessment and if it still makes sense to purchase these passports, who this might still be good for, and what are the people that this impacts and who should not be looking at purchasing these passports. But before we get started, if you're new to my channel, I'm Jay, and here we discuss investments that lead to residencies and citizenships. So if you haven't subscribed, take a moment and subscribe right now so you're always updated on all the latest and greatest news regarding any changes to programs. Quick disclaimer, this is not investment, immigration, legal or tax advice. This is my personal opinion. This is news and educational content. All right, so a lot of marketing agencies and companies that sell CBI passports heavily market the E2 scheme, and especially a lot of Chinese applicants are very interested in the E2 feature. The pitch proposition is you invest in these passports, let's say you pay $50,000 extra in some cases just for the E2 access, and that way you get a backdoor entry into the US. Now, this is the theoretical pitch proposition. In practice, a lot of these requests, based on which country you're coming from, a lot of these requests, especially from CBI countries, are anyways rejected for these type of visas. But in theory, one had the option of purchasing a passport, bumping their access, and then turning up for an E2 visa application the very next day. And this was one type of a loophole that they recognized, and this was terminated. So let's take an example. You pay 100K and you get a certain passport. That's the cheapest. You don't get E2 because you don't want E2. But if you're thinking that you want that access into the US, you want a convenient visa to return to the US, then the marketing agencies would recommend to you to get an E2 feature passport so that you have the access. So once either you want to go to the US, or let's say you want to renounce, you're from the US, you're renouncing your US citizenship, and you want to have the ability to go back to the US, then you purchase this more expensive option, which comes with the E2 feature. Now, some of the examples of countries that sell CBI passports that come with the E2 feature are countries like Grenada, Turkey, North Macedonia, Montenegro has that. So there are a lot of countries that have this E2 feature that comes along with the passport. Now, so far, they didn't discriminate based on whether this is a purchased pay for passport scheme citizenship or whether this is a natural citizenship, meaning someone who is from the country ethnically or someone who is born in the country. There was no differentiation based on that. But with this new ruling, the new law, which is the NDAA Act, that has been passed and approved in the House, meaning this is now in full force, this is now in full effect. The change that has happened is that anyone getting a CBI passport and they're trying to use the E2 feature, they are no longer eligible to go and apply for E2. There's only one circumstances or exceptional circumstances in which this would be permitted for CBI applicants, and that is if these category of people are domiciled in the country of the CBI, meaning you have established yourself in the country for a certain amount of time. Only then you may be eligible for that E2 access. Now, when you talk about domicile, it's really a quantitative term, and each country defines it differently. But generally speaking, when you say someone is domiciled in the country, there are a few things that one looks for. One is that you're living there. Let's say you have a home, you have a car, you have significant ties to the country, which indicates that you actually reside there, you actually living there, you have moved there. So that's one criteria. Second criteria is you're paying taxes in that country. So you're a full tax resident, and that way when it genuinely appears that yes, you have completed X number of years and it's 3 minimum, so they want you to at least be established in your CBI country for 3 years, after which you can then apply for the E2 category. A lot of people purchase these passports just to have the E2 access. They never even go to these countries, let alone being a tax resident or physically moving there. I'm not saying all, some people do end up traveling, but here we're talking about a full domicile in the country for 3 years. Only then they would consider these applications. Now, does this make any real difference? Well, considering the number of rejections that there were anyways on E2 applications, effectively it doesn't make much of a difference. But yes, there were E2 visas issued to people before. So let's say you purchased this and you went for a visa. Technically, you had the ability to go and appear for a visa. Whether it gets approved or not approved is a different question, but at least you had the ability. With this change, the ability has been terminated. So this can really vastly impact a lot of marketing companies, marketing agencies who have sold E2 options to their clients already, or who are in the process of marketing, or the marketing materials would be impacted by all of this. Now, my analysis on whether it makes sense to purchase these passports. Well, if you were looking for a quick E2 purchase into the US, then obviously it would not make sense anymore, because you've lost that access unless you really want to domicile in that country. The second category is, yes, if you want to really move there and be a tax resident and switch base to your CBI country, then this may make sense in case you want to use that E2 later on. One of the things with the CBI passport is that risk that you always run. So once they start scrutinizing these type of schemes, and these type of schemes go under the radar when things are fine, but as the world starts getting more polarized, you have more visibility, more attention to these type of schemes. Now, if you look at history, right, one has to look at history and the current times to make future assessments. The Cyprus closed down because there were issues, all the attention spotlight was on Cyprus. They had to close down the program. If you look at Bulgaria, again, the program closed down. If you look at Malta, again, significantly impacted. So if you look at these programs, they are coming under scrutiny. There is investigation, and finally these programs close down. So when you're investing capital in purchasing these passports, let's say 150K or 100K for the Caribbean passports, Malta, Cyprus, and some of the higher ranking passports were in the range of $750K to $1 million. So when you're investing such a heavy capital in these passports, and if your objective is that yes, you want all the bells and whistles, then the risk, you have to weigh the risk, right? Because these are not naturally obtained passports. Naturally meaning you haven't resided in the country and naturalized in the country. You have simply paid money and you have purchased this option. They might be successful in selling all these passports to people who want to buy them, but the real risk is here when they scrutinize these cases. A lot of people have had their citizenships terminated. That were cases which had issues with them. But even otherwise, when you purchase these passports, there's always a risk that you might lose all of the access. Vanuatu famously lost its Schengen access. Similarly, they're looking at other stuff with that passport. Then if you look at this recent approval in the Congress, the E2 has been taken away for the CBI passports. You've again lost that. So you may have paid money thinking that you want the E2 feature, but now guess what? You've lost those 50K if you had paid for the E2, but now you're obviously ineligible for that E2 access. So such risks are always there. Now finally, my assessment on whether you should purchase these passports or not. If you are in an immediate need to travel and you want access and you don't mind taking the risk of maybe even losing your access or losing some features from that access, then it may be a good option. But again, these are not naturally obtained options. This is not like naturalizing in a country. This is tagged as a CBI option. So the world really looks at this very closely. Now, there are some marketers on the internet which keep flashing these documents and they claim that they've gotten this and this is some sort of a VIP pass where if you flash this and you get easy entry and this is so good and all of that. And they also claim that a lot of people don't know anything about this, but I would stay clear of any such claims. Obviously, everyone knows what a CBI passport is, and there is heavy amount of scrutiny in real life. So you got to use common sense when you hear such information, and you have to filter out such marketing people who often provide misguidance, misinformation, wrong information in a lot of cases. A lot of these people don't research any information properly and then they just say something. So it's very important to use your common sense So anything that sounds too good to be true is probably too good to be true. Now, there has been a lot of talk about blanket changes across the CBI access, meaning a lot of countries, there has been talk whether the CBI citizens should have the same access as natural born citizens. Now, there has been no change on this front as of now, except the E2 and the Vanuatu changes that I've discussed. But in future, if there is any change, for example, let's say if the CBI passport holders aren't able to keep their access, they have to be domiciled in order to exercise any access. If there's that kind of a change, that can significantly impact a lot of these products. And I'll be the first one to provide an update video in case that happens or if there's any development on that front. So make sure you are subscribed to my channel so you get the timely updates on this topic. And I hope you appreciated my analysis. If you did, give me a thumbs up and catch you in the next one.